Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pacers Daily. I am your host, Hery Acosta. Here with a new episode today. Let's start things off with Tyrese Haliburton donating $3 million to his old high school. Just a wonderful thing to do. You see a lot of players donating either to like old AAU programs, old high schools, but a $3 million donation, especially from a player that's only been in the league for about 5 seasons, that's a pretty big deal just because now, obviously, he's on a pretty big contract now that just kicked in last season. But at the same time, $3 million is $3 million, and that can do a lot. Not just for the basketball program, but just, jerseys and making sure these kids get to school and just, you know, this is just a wonderful thing to do. Fiance talked about it on social media. Everyone was talking about it on social media, saying this is a big gesture. There's still going to be people that are saying, oh, that's not enough money or something like that, and it's, come on. Like, he doesn't have to give away his money to anybody. I mean, that's his money. That's something he worked hard for. So, huge props to Haliburton for this. This is just one of the reasons that Haliburton, in my opinion, should be one of the most liked players in the NBA. Not only is he just a very likable human being in general, that just stuff like this, out of the kindness of his heart, saying, oh, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to give $3 million to my old high school. I want these kids to just be able to play basketball. I want these kids to be able to go to school. All reminds me of when LeBron opened his school with that $40 million. It's good to see athletes giving back to their community and, being able to just see that firsthand, and especially in our city. But, let's go to 2K. I agree with this. Tyrese Haliburton is a 93 overall in 2K, making that his highest rating ever. He's tied with the likes of Jalen Brunson and a bunch of other pretty good players. So, for someone who's not going to play next season, he has a very high rating. Now, he's going to be one of the best players to play with in 2K. And the other players I kind of wanted to talk about, I may have talked about it the other day, were Nesmith and Nembhard getting 81s. Now, for two players that started in the finals, they're around the same rating as Lou Dort as well. So it's not really just the fact that it started in the finals, but the fact that they're both definitely over 81s. And there was a lot of disrespectful ratings. I saw Jalen Johnson from the Hawks as an 81, and before his injury, he looked like he could have been an all-star. And also, Nembhard has all-star capabilities. Nesmith is one of the better 3-and-D players in the league. So there's no way those constitute to an 81 rating. Now, over to Haliburton, we've seen Hallie be around an 88 to a 91 in the last few 2Ks, just because he's blossomed into an all-star, into an all-NBA player. But this last year, he didn't make the all-star team, but he was in the all-NBA, led his team to a finals run. So this one's very deserved. Definitely one of the better players in the league. He's top 15 right now in the game. So that's very good for him. On over to kind of something I was reading about, just to see how if Rick Carlisle is going to change his playmaking, like the team's playmaking for 2024, for 2025, 2026, and how it differentiates from last season's. Just because now you have a whole different outlook on who's starting and who's, not playing. Most of the playmaking last year went through Hallie. A lot of it ended up in Turner's hands. Turner was one of the top 3 leading scorers on his team, but now that he's gone, and you bring in players like Jay Huff, who can spread the floor, you keep Siakam is going to be one of the dominant ball handlers now on this team. He can create his own shot and be able to do all that. But now you're playing with Nembhard. Now, Nembhard is a great playmaker. Nembhard can create his own shot. Nembhard can find open teammates. It's just there's not going to be like the same level of flashiness when it comes to passing and when it comes to just being a pass-first guy. Because Nembhard is very ball dominant. Nembhard, you've seen some of the crossovers he does. His dribbling is very, very good. But his outside shooting off the dribble is perhaps one of the best in the league. He doesn't really need to be. He's not a catch and shoot guy. Now he can catch and shoot. We've seen it multiple times before, but he's that kind of guy that's gonna make his own play and then just pull up, because that is his best skill besides his defense. Now, the other player that's gonna be very ball dominant is gonna be Matherin, but Matherin's gonna be less of a playmaker, more of a find my own shot kind of guy. Matherin is also kind of a catch and shoot. Now, he's more of a let me hit you with a pump fake and then shoot, rather than actually just straight up catch it and shoot it. Now, we've seen him make a bunch of catch and shoot shots, but that's not really his overall game. Now the playmaking will look different. I think it's going to be a lot different. I don't think it's going to be worse or better in any ways. I think it's going to be just as good as it was. Now, if it's better, wonderful. But I don't think there's going to be a drop-off in production from last season just because the playmaking is changing. And speaking of playmaking, I didn't mention him, but TJ McConnell, his impact off the bench is going to be more than ever, just because now he's going to get more minutes. He's going to be playing a lot more point guard than he did last year. He would always come in. Him and Hallie would kind of share that one position whenever they would play together. But then obviously Matherin would come in. You'd have those two. But now McConnell's going to be that 1-2 game with Obi Toppin off the bench is going to be better than ever, just because both of them are going to be the first two off the bench. There is no doubt about who's going to be first and second off the bench. Last year, you always had who's going to be first off the bench: McConnell, Toppin, or Matherin. It usually was Toppin, because Siakam would always be the first one to come out. But now, with all the new centers, with everyone being able to play this year, and having outside of Haliburton, having a healthy roster, there is going to be a lot to go around. And McConnell's that kind of guy that can genuinely average 6, 7, 8 assists off the bench. And that's not something you typically see from backup point guards. But TJ has that skill. He's also a guy that can average over a steal off the bench. We've seen him have a 10-steal game in Indy. We've seen him have one in Philadelphia. This kid is good. He's one of the best bench point guards in the league. He can start for some teams around the league, like that, just depending on the way the play styles are. But just a guy who's a genuine six man of the year candidate, and someone who's brought what he's brought to the city. Someone who had a crazy good finals run, which was funny because there was right before the finals. I didn't think he was having his best performances. I think he was struggling a little bit, and then the finals hit, and he's just like, oh yeah, this is why I should be in the 6 man of the year conversations every year. So very excited to see how much he impacts off the bench. But as always, I'm your host, Hery Acosta. This is Pacers Daily. Boom, baby, and go Sirs.